Evening, everyone. Welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, the best Leicester City fan channel on the internet. And I'm joined today by Mr. Blue Tinted Glass himself. It's Lux. Good evening, Lux. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm going to take your spot now by saying this because this is normally your script, but it's nearly the big day. Only 6 days to go.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, you're right. Wow, what a shock. Well, we're looking forward to that. And of course, keep tuned to Blue Tinted Glasses because we actually got a Christmas special coming out. It's going to be even better than the Only Fools and Horses ones. That's what Lux has told me. So no pressure or anything like that. But let's put it. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you in here. LCFC doing the countdown, and we are live. That's right, we are live on YouTube One. And evening to you, Zaid. Evening to you, Sean, as well. Well, thank you for joining us today. We're going to do the match preview. Absolutely huge game at the bottom of the table coming up this weekend, this time on Sunday. So we thought we'd do the preview live. I think it's been quite a dramatic week for one of the clubs in particular, and this time it's not us. So we thought we'd take a little look at that. And thanks to Lux, we've actually got a little segment from Talking Wolves, one of the Wolves channels, to play to you a little bit later on. And we'll get their feelings as well, because they must be really going through it too. So without any ado, let's get this show on the road. So, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 2 weeks, you'll know that this fella, Gary O'Neill, was yet another British manager to get sacked recently. Feel a bit sorry for him. I think he sometimes had a bit of a hard time. He was sort of given the Bournemouth job, kept them up, got fired. Then he got given the Wolves job as sort of being the cheapest option, kept them up, and now has got fired anyway. But that said, I think you'd have to say that their performance this season is pretty underwhelming. And here's the proof. So they're one of the few teams that's doing even worse than we are. They're languishing in 19th place. I think that's quite a turn up. I think, where did you have Wolves to finish at the end of the season, at the start of the season, Knox?
I think I had them around 15th, 16th. So not too much better off, but definitely, I definitely didn't have them in the bottom three. It's been a little bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah, same here. I didn't really think they'd be. I thought it's possible they could be involved in the relegation battle, but I thought if they've already just done such a good job last year, they seem to be pretty sound all round. It was, I was actually thinking, if anything, Forest. I mean, that age like milk, or maybe Brentford could get dragged into it, and those two have absolutely blown everyone away. So Wolves, surprisingly find themselves adrift, and the fact that they're 3 points worse off than Ipswich right now and 5 points worse off than us is pretty surprising, I think. 4 losses in a row as well in their recent form. So one of the few teams that has even worse recent form than we do. Now, here's the big reason why both these teams are near the bottom of the table. So we've conceded a whopping 34 goals, but compared to Wolves, we almost look good because they've conceded 40 goals already, which is insane. Concede 40 goals not even before Christmas. Are they trying to do a Sheffield United? They're not that far away in terms of how much they're conceding. So that's really, really poor from them. But here's an even crazier stat, right? So I brought this out on the Fox's Den yesterday. Look how many goals they've conceded from set pieces. Now, this is just in the league. In all competitions, they've actually conceded another 4 goals from set pieces, which is absolutely crazy. So, they're 6 worse off than the next worst team. One thing that surprised me as well, though, actually, is that we actually ended up here 5th. We're joint 5th with like a few other teams on these 5 set pieces goals. And that's a bit unfortunate because on the weekend we conceded 2. So if we hadn't conceded them in that game, we'd be a lot better off, because I personally think that we've improved a lot in our set piece defense, even compared to last season. But yeah, you can see that some teams are really struggling, and Wolves are one of those teams. And yeah. It's interesting, KCK, that you say it's identical to our stats during the relegation season, because there's quite a few parallels, I think, between the two teams. But here's interesting. Here's the underlying data. And this is actually a little bit worrying, in my opinion. So this is a stat called expected goals against. And you can see that, like, unsurprisingly, both teams are in the top 6 here. But the thing with Wolves is they've got this stat, but this is their underperformance. And the reason why I'm saying this is surprising is I think if you took away their ineptitude at set pieces, their defense is actually not too bad. And I'd actually say that their defense is quite considerably better than ours. And we've been saying it all season long, that if you're going along with these sort of stats, it's going to be very, very difficult to stay up. I mean, to be fair, our only hope is there's Southampton and Ipswich are also 2 teams. You've got to find another team that has a worse defense than we do. Now, right now, that's technically it's Wolves. But I think the problem is that any manager who comes in if he can fix their set pieces, it's going to improve them a lot. But I will say, Clemmo, you're bang on the money. You won't be able to fix their set piece issue in 2 days, though, will they? No, simply not possible. It is not possible to arrange a team like that. You've got to practice that like crazy. So that's one thing that goes in our favor. And yeah, here's another thing that I found interesting in terms of the data: shots per game. So actually, what's surprising is you can see that Brentford actually concede the most amount of shots per game in the league this season, which is kind of crazy. But unfortunately, the next couple of teams up are, look, you got Leicester and then you got Southampton, and this is the big problem: is that every game we're just completely up against it. And you can see Wolves. I mean, they're still conceding a lot of shots, but look, they're conceding 4 less shots a game than we are. Right. And so that might equate to 1 goal or something like that. So I think that is the underlying issue. 31 shots we conceded against West Ham. I think it was 27 or something against Newcastle. These are crazy numbers. I'm not sure really, though, what we can do to fix that until the window opens. I wonder what your thoughts are on that, Locks.
Well, I mean, I was just speaking with a Wolves fan not long ago, and he said it that, you know, the number of shots faced are crazy, ridiculous. And he did actually ask me, and I wasn't 100% sure. So actually, it's I'm happy you're here as always, Anil, because I want to ask you. I mean, it's got worse under Rude, hasn't it? It has got worse under the last 3 games under Rude. The shots faced.
Well, I mean, the stats would say that it has done. It was good against Brighton. I think Brighton, it was lower than what it was against Cooper. Again, with Cooper, it was like regularly, we can see the average was 18. So if we only conceded 15 against Brighton, that's an improvement. But it has been worse against West Ham and Newcastle. And I think that's because we're playing the compact 4-4-2. So we're actually giving the opposition more ball to take shots. Now, the shot quality isn't something that's measured here. But look, let's keep an eye on that. I'll be honest with you, Locks, maybe not necessarily this weekend, but with the game after that against Liverpool, I've got a feeling we might be seeing more than 31 shots on our goal. So that's just something to watch out for. I don't really think we can measure it, I would say, till about end of January, because I think he needs to bring some players in and get some more time with the team. But let's see what happens. I just want to go then through some of Wolves' recent form. I think this is interesting to see. So this is literally the straw that broke the camel's back. Here they lost at home to Ipswich, but you can see here that I feel a bit unfortunate in that game. The XG was like roughly the same, so probably 1-1 would have been a fair result. You can see that they had more shots, more passes, more possession, but you know, crucially, they gave away a corner right at the end of the game, and all the Wolves fans said they just knew they were going to concede it. And guess what happened? They did. And Ipswich got a famous win to like really put a big difference between the two. Here's how they played. I'm going to show you a bit later, but with Wolves, what's interesting is they have changed their system quite considerably. They started the season with like a 4-2-3-1, and 4 at the back just simply didn't work for them. They were getting murdered. So in recent games, they've moved to a kind of 3-4-3. But guess what? That hasn't worked either. So they're really struggling. But I think what does help them is that their new manager who's coming in, and a bit late, we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But he also plays that sort of system, something to get used to. But I think the one thing that I really noticed that looking at their teams these days is that in previous years, Wolves used to have a few star players. But this season, with the exception of Mateus Cunha, a lot of these people, you're like, who are they? You don't even know. They still got Matt Doherty. I know he went to Spurs. He's obviously come back. You know, this doesn't really terrify you, does it? I mean, Lamina, he used to play for Southampton. So it's interesting that, well, we'll get to that in a moment, but they clearly haven't replenished the squad yet after some big sales. Here was the game against West Ham in what they described as El Sacico, another one of those near the bottom of the table. And this one, Lopetegui, who is Wolves' former manager, he came out on top. This one, though, it looks like West Ham were the better team throughout, so perhaps that's not too surprising. But then again, if you look at the XG, you can see that West Ham had fewer XG than Wolves. So again, maybe they're a bit unlucky. I guess the point I'm proving here is despite them being so low in the table, there's not many games where the data says that they should have got absolutely battered, even though in the next game, Everton, actually I put 2-1 here, but that's not true. This was 4-0 actually to Everton, believe it or not. Everton won 4-0, but you can see that the XG, I mean, in fact, just correct that. The XG was 1 to 0.78. So if anything, you know, maybe a more accurate scoreline would have been 1-1, but they got battered 4-0. And you can see again that how's this? Everton had 4 shots on target and scored 4 goals. When it's not going for you at the bottom, it really doesn't go for you. And I know that this is like a really shocking result. Like they said Everton weren't particularly good and they still got absolutely twatted 4-0. So that's really, really huge for them. And again, playing the kind of 3-4-2-1. Again, you got Craig Dawson playing for them. Even God, these days, not looking good. And look how poor performance they got. I think Jose Sarr had the day to forget in goal for them. And I think after that game, he got dropped, actually. So he might not even play against us on the weekend. And then previously, just want to show you, this was another game that they played and another one that they lost. Here's another bit of thing. So this game, Justin Kluivert scored a hat-trick and every single goal was a penalty. What are the chances of that? 3 penalties in one game and all scored. So they lost 4-2. And in this game, they were playing the 4-2-3-1 and they've changed their shape. So it does really feel that, like, for Wolves, nothing that they do is working, which is pretty sad, I would say. And that's really sort of sign. And so all that has led to this guy coming in, which is Vitor Pereira. Now we're going to talk about him in a moment, but before we do, I'm going to bring up a great segment that Locks managed to get for us done earlier today. So this is Dave from Talking Wolves, and he's going to tell us what he thinks is going wrong from a Wolves point of view.
So then, Leicester Wolves this weekend, a massive game for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and our first game with our new manager Vitor Pereira in charge. Intrigued to see what he's got to say in his pre-match press conference. Under Gary O'Neill, Wolves have really struggled this season. Defensively, we've been atrocious. Defending set pieces are a real low point for us this season. And it's going to be. You've seen the scenes after the last couple of games, the aggression of the players. It's spilling over, and the new head coach really needs to put a lid on that. And this is a massive game, I would say, for both teams. Ruben Nistelrooy will be looking at this, and Leicester fans will be looking at this as a winnable game. And although probably Wolves fans don't have as much confidence as you guys probably do at the moment, it's still a game that I feel Wolves have enough quality to get a win from. A win here for Wolves on Sunday would be massive. I've been to the King Power a couple of times, I think, and I don't think I've ever seen us win there, actually. So I'm intrigued to see how we get on. It's a massive game for Wolves. Ryan Aït-Nouri out suspended for us. Later on today, which is Thursday, we'll hear the outcome, I'm sure, of Matheus Cunha's ban, if he will be banned for this game, or whether it will be pushed back a little bit as well. If I had to give you a score prediction, I'm going to side with Wolves naturally. I think the new manager bounce and stuff will help us. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Wolves win, but it could easily be the other way. This is a real telling test for the new manager. Is he going to get the backing of the fans, or is it going to be a long, hard season for Wolves? All the best for the rest of the season, guys, after Sunday. Hopefully Wolves do get the 3 points, but I know it's going to be a tough game for both teams.
No way is he called Dave. Don't believe it. Fake news. But thank you very much to Dave from Talking Wolves. That was really, really good. I love it when you get proper passionate fans that know what they're talking about. And it's interesting how many people are saying that the manager bounce is a myth. Now, I've got to say that this guy, this I feel is one of those appointments that only Wolves would make. No other team would do it. He wasn't on the Leicester list for new managers. He wasn't on the Southampton list for new managers, but he is on the Wolves list for new managers. So this guy is a real sort of journeyman. Look at how many clubs he's been at. All the way back in 2014, he was apparently linked with Everton, and I think a deal was even close to being done, but he pulled out of it for the last second. He's actually come from the Saudi league with Al Shabab. Do you watch much Saudi football, Locks?
I don't, mate. I don't.
Yeah, me neither. So I'm not going to try and claim to you like, oh, this is what he does. No idea. Is he represented by George Mendes? Of course he is. That's where he's come from. The Mendes carousel. But the Mendes carousel does have some benefits. That's how they got Cunha a few seasons ago when we went down. That was a £45 million signing they made despite being in a relegation zone. So just saying. But here you can see for Al Shabab, they were 6th place in the Saudi league. I noticed that in their squad, they had players like Yannick Carrasco and Daniel Podence, who actually used to play for Wolves. But other than that, not one of the star teams compared to the other ones. You know, like you got Al Nassr is Ronaldo's team. I think Al Ittihad is the one that, what's his name? Mitrovic and the Milinkovic Savic, I think, played for that team. So not one of those ones. So no real clue about what he does. I did a bit of research online though, and what I found is that he does like to do this sort of 3-4-2-1, which is what I sort of pointed out earlier. And I did find this article on one of the coaches' voices. Look, it's another coach that likes to build in a 3-2 shape and have 5 up front. So he's pretty much doing what most coaches do, although it's how you arrive in that shape and how you get there that's important. Here was when he was at Fenerbahce, and you can see, look, it's interesting. He had Kim Min-jae, who ended up going to Napoli and then Bayern Munich. He had Kadioglu, who's now at Brighton, you might remember. I'm not sure if that's Ibrahim Sangare. I'm guessing not, because he would probably be in the middle. But interesting to see that. Oh, yeah, and Bayern Deer, he's actually gone to Man United, although he never plays. Yep. He's their backup keeper. And yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I'll have a shabab with chips, please. It's definitely
Samatta, is that the one who was he at Villa? I'm sure he was at Villa.
Which one's that?
the striker, the backup striker there. Can you see?
Yeah, you're right. It is him. Well, good memory you've got. Very good, Docs. Yeah, and Ozil, you might remember him, of course. He's pretty famous in this country too. What Dave mentioned, of course, which is really kind of funny, is that when we know they're definitely going to be missing out Nori. I mean, that's pretty hilarious, getting bear hugged off the pitch. Now, as for Cunha, I don't know. I mean, someone was joking, saying that he should turn up to the meeting with the FA today with the glasses that he's stolen from the Ipswich steward there, just to sort of make them laugh. But a few people have said, look, I don't know. If anyone knows in chat if he definitely is or isn't playing, I don't know. I've got a feeling that he will play though, because I think that they're going to probably appeal the penalty, because I think they know they need him for this game coming up. And so for that reason, I've actually got 2 players to watch just in case one of them, which is Cunha, doesn't play. But without any doubt, this guy, I didn't realize he's only 25 years old, but Matheus Cunha signed from Atletico Madrid. I thought he even looked quite good at Atletico Madrid. But here you can see for the season so far, he's already got 8 goals and 3 assists. That is some serious going for a team that's so far down the table. And you can see in terms of his profile, it's excellent. Like, he actually puts in a lot of hard work in terms of the clearances and interceptions, scores a lot of goals, can take people on, can score. And you can see here that, the only weakness he seems to have is aerial duels. So let's get Ndidi on him. But other than that, very, very good, very technical player. Look, we'd all love to have a top quality Brazilian attacking midfielder or a left winger that isn't called Tete at the team. I mean, 45 million quid, that's something to be looking at. So really impressive. I think you all know, whenever you see the highlights, he's the one that does well. And yeah, I agree with you, Akib. He is way too good for them.
Did they sign him the year we went down as well?
Correct.
That's, yeah.
Now, to be honest, that's a really good point that you brought that up, Locks, because I will say that season that we went down, there were 2 things that shocked me that season. The first was in the summer transfer window that Forest were going absolutely ham. They were signing so many players. And I kept thinking to myself, this is ridiculous. Like, Leicester City have won the FA Cup and finished 5th 2 seasons in a row. And we've never been able to sign at that level compared to a team that's just come up. Like, it doesn't seem right. They must be doing something, right? And then if that wasn't bad enough, then after the World Cup or during the World Cup, when Wolves made the change, they brought in Julen Lopetegui, who won the Europa League and has used to manage Real Madrid and Spain, as their coach. And then they bought Cunha for 45 million. And I'm pretty sure they signed 2 other players as well. And again, I was thinking, this is nuts. Like, how come Leicester cannot? And we just sold Wesley Fofana as well. Like, what's going on? The maths don't add up there. And then Villa themselves, they got rid of Gerrard that season and brought in Unai Emery. That was another crazy one. I was just thinking that to me, that season was when I felt like the Premier League jumped to level. And that's why everyone's saying now that the gap between the Championship and Premier League is just too big. And I agree. And that's, I think, another reason why. That's why I personally think we are going to spend big in January, because I think they've realized that if you don't do it now, you might not ever come back or get to the same position. So that's scary. Anyway, we know he's really good. But you know what? To be fair to Wolves, I think they signed another player that I think is pretty good. And this is Jurgen Strand Larsen. They signed him from Spanish club Celta Vigo, and he's only 24. So I think, to be fair to them, they've clearly changed their strategy to sign younger players with more potential. And here you can see again, despite playing for a fairly, weak team near the bottom of the table, 6 goals, 2 assists in his 16 appearances so far. That's pretty solid. He's more of a target man, although not the best at holding onto the ball, according to Who Scored. But he's fairly solid. But I think when you see him play, he is scoring goals. I think, if you make a summer signing for that amount of money, I think they paid about 20 million to already have 6 goals so far. I think that's pretty impressive. I think, when you're in a sort of bottom 5, bottom 10, a striker that gets you 10 goals a season is pretty good. Vardy's probably going to end up with that. So they have one. So, I think fair play to them.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he's a loan with obligation to buy. And I even read today that even if they go down, they don't have to spend the money. And that's the kind of business I want to see us go for this January as well. I mean, we keep seeing these rumors of Evan Ferguson, which I still find unbelievable, and that I don't think it could ever happen. But if Brighton are willing to, why not try something like that? Once Edouard goes, I suppose it would also require Facundo back, wouldn't it? But so yeah, maybe we can't do it for him. But anybody else, like, try a loan with obligation to buy if we stay up. I know the deals are a bit of a pain in the arse to put together, and for some reason Leicester never seem to get these types of deals over the line. Although we did do Fatawu, but that took a while. Yeah. I would much rather us try and do something like that. But yeah, as Chris says, just buy him. I don't think it's that easy to buy Evan Ferguson, but I'd take him. But we've got other priorities, haven't we? So which we don't need to go into now.
To be fair, that guy that ended up at Hoffenheim, Adam Hlošek, I think he was going to be a loan with a forced buy option, but he just decided to stay in Germany instead. So, but you know what, Locks? I think you'll see that not through a choice. I think we'll have to do that from now on. We just don't have any other option. And yeah, look, it's interesting that, you know, if you, as Aids has said, you know, I don't think we'll ever sign a 45 million player. I kind of agree. I don't think we'd do that either on just one player, but I could see us spending 45 million on 2 players, which might still be an improvement. But look, I will say that I think that's something that Wolves got right, which is that, you know, when you sign a player of that quality, teams in the bottom just don't have that kind of quality. And that can be the difference between staying up or not, right? I mean, if you look at our team now, compare players like Maddison, Tielemans to who we've got now. Like, when's the last time? Maybe you could say Buonanotte. Maybe El Canous in time will become it, but I can't remember the last time that we signed someone. You're like, I'm just so certain this player is going to be like, you know, top dollar.
I feel like that for El Canous. I think El Canous is a better player now than Maddison was when we signed him.
Yeah,
I think El Canous is a better player now. But can I just say as well, about somebody said, I don't think we'll spend £45 million on a player. I actually think we would, but I think we would have to be at that point where we were when we signed Tielemans. Remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did we finish when we signed Tielemans? It was like, was it the first half season under Rodgers? Where was it? 12th, 9th?
Yeah.
So 9th place is like 40 million, is a lot of money to spend on one player from a 9th place Premier League team. And it worked because he was quality for us. You know, I know how it ended, but he was quality. So I think if we ever get to that position again, Anil, where we are a mid-table Premier League team, we're quite stable, make that one big sign. I do see it happening, and I think the board would. I mean, this is the same board that just spent 25 million on Buddy Oliver Skip. So I'd hope to spend 40 million on a Facundo, for example, someone like that.
Yeah. Well, I think they'll be forced to. Prices go up at the end of the day, don't they? All right, I'm going to show you now. Obviously, they've got a new manager, so he'll have some things to fix. But here are some things that struck out to me as things that they could improve, other than the set pieces that they're doing badly. So they defend in the regular 4-4-2. That's not really a surprise. But what I've noticed is that they're good here when they're kind of in their shape. But when they actually have to move around, they're actually pretty bad. So here was like an example against Brentford, and they ended up conceding off this. And what I want to bring out here is that Brentford have got 2 wide players, but Wolves have decided to swarm them with 5 different people. Now, if you compared this to what Ruud does, he would probably do 4, and this player would probably be a bit further back. And so what ended up happening of this sequence is because there's only 2 Brentford players here, I think Mbeumo just smashes the cross in, and this player here, who's Norgard, just runs into that totally free space and headed it in for thank you very much, 1-0 after just 90 seconds of the game. And they do this sort of thing a lot. So do you know what? I hate to say this, but this is classic British manager in the modern game, where it feels like they're playing Football Manager. They look at what's happening, but they don't understand the sort of nuances in what you need to do when people are moving off the ball. Here's another example from the same game. So Brentford have got the ball again here. They're coming back in a defensive shape. And here's your 2 CDMs. And for some reason, they're in a conga line. So normally they should be side by side. So this one, I think this is Lamina. What is he doing? Just following his mates. Again, the cross comes in here, and the same player, I think, heads it in again. So they didn't even learn the mistake. And that's crazy, because here, if you look at it, Brentford have got 4 people. They've got 6 people back. So, you know, they should never be able to find the free man there, and they did.
Could you say that this image here is very similar to what we've seen a lot from Leicester this season, with Justin, you know, that right side being so open,
vacated.
Yeah. And even the midfielders, I'm not saying specifically they've done that, but there's been disorganization, hasn't there?
It feels Cooper-esque, and I would say that, like, then you've got to say with Gary O'Neill, if the team's bad at set pieces and you're seeing bad at this as well, that seems to be like a fairly consistent theme of bad organization of your players. Bang on, Chris. You're appointed. You can join me and Locks on the touchline for Blue Tinted Glasses FC when we do our summer showdown. They are too narrow, right? Or you could be that narrow.
Can you imagine that? A charity match, Blue Tinted Glasses versus Leicester Fan TV?
Oh my God, make that happen, Locks. That would be amazing.
No, it's too entertaining for them, I think.
Maybe. That'd be 100k subs for both channels. I'm up for that. That'd be pretty hilarious. I think so. I agree with you, Tito. We'll come to that in a moment. I think, he probably, Ruud is going to be going through a lot of the players there. So then Wolves, when this is under Gary Neal, of course, these I think what Victor Pereira will change. So here's another thing, right? So they again with Gary O'Neill, they tried to play this sort of 3-2-5 shape, but you can see here that again, this is the classic British manager where they're doing it wrong. So they've got 5 men up, but they haven't got anyone between the lines. So what you're doing is you've got 3 people passing it here, and this is Aston Villa who's just sitting there thinking, all right, then yeah, do what you want. You're not actually got anyone here playing in between the spaces to drag people out. So that's like another issue that they've had as well. Very interesting to see that
there's applications in there. There's people are going to be sending in their footballing CVs now to play in goal and to play. I'm on about the questions there about the the match.
Should do it, honestly. That'd be a good laugh in the summer. I'm up for it. And then finally, another sort of thing. So here again, their lack of being able to play through the lines. And here was another one against Wolves where they've gone for an attacking sequence. And here Liverpool are just thinking, what are you doing, lads? So here you can see they've got a 2-on-2 on the side. So Liverpool are fine here. Who's box crashing? There's no Wolves players here. So here they've only committed 4 people. Liverpool got plenty of people back. And it's just like a common theme. Like, again, basically, they sort of have the right shape. They've got a good squad, but they just you don't know what you're doing is literally true with their previous manager. Now, the only thing I am going to say, and that worries me a lot, though, is that what we were hoping for this season is that we thought we could probably finish above Ipswich and Southampton, although Ipswich are right on our tails. But we had to hope that 1 or 2 existing teams were having an off year and could get dragged down. Now, so far, it has happened with Wolves. But I think the problem is what I'm saying here is that I feel that like a coach who just isn't terrible, you don't even need to be good, I think would get this team playing a lot better. So that is a bit of a worry. And we've got to hope that this Vitor Pereira is a bit of a fraudulent character. I have heard that this is his 5th club in 4 years. So that does suggest to me that he could fall out of people, get into an argument. And I hope that happens. Because otherwise, like put it this way, if Ruud went to Wolves, I think he'd improve them quite a lot. I hate to say it. I think if Potter went there, I think if Moyes went there, they'd probably be all right. So I'm actually happy that they've gone for this sort of like, sort of unknown coach come in these shores, because otherwise I think we'd be worried. So for me, the Wolves woes, as Akif says, their new coach is an absolute gamble, and we got to hope that he is. So what's interesting, I think, if I had to look at their kind of woes, I think it's very similar to our relegation season. They failed to properly replace their key departures. They Ruben Neves from a few years ago, Neto again, who's gone Chelsea. Kilman, I don't think was that good a player, but I mean, if you sell someone for 45 million, you'd think you'd be able to get a proper good defender in for that amount of money. They then handed a long contract to O'Neill, who felt like the cheap option, never a good sign. They seem to be lacking a mid or long-term vision. Are their owners selling up? They say they're going to back the new manager in January, but you know what I think they're really going to do? I call it the Mendes carousel. They probably will buy some big name players. But what he seems to do is he sort of circulates money between these clubs. So there was a few seasons ago where Wolves bought this player called Fabio Silva. I don't know if you remember this one, Locks. And they bought this guy. He was 18 years old for £40 million, even though he'd only played 7 games and scored 1 goal for Porto. But basically, they were told to do it because Mendes was like, look, when you're in a championship, I got you Neves, I got you Diego Jota, I got you all these amazing players. Now you need to play ball. Now you need to give me money so Barcelona or someone can buy some good players. But I'll give you the star player next year instead. He works on that kind of operation. So I don't know. I'm hoping that although he is going to be there to get players, it might just be as a way to funnel money into some of his other entities, and they've really given up. That's what I'm secretly hoping for. Sorry, Wolves fans, if you're watching. Nothing against you, but we want to stay up this season.
I don't know if you saw this, by the way, just a bit of somebody's done their research. At Corinthians, he did well. He made up an excuse about his mother-in-law, and months later, he appeared at Flamengo. I mean, I agree. I think it's a massive gamble. It could. I mean, we just don't know enough, do we, to kind of put a proper prediction on it. However, I did see a comment earlier on from Rye, I think it was. Let me just try and find it. And you did bring it up at the time, and I actually could not disagree with this more. I refuse. It's not a myth. The manager bounce is a genuine thing. Like, I'm convinced, and I think it's all mentally. It's all that the players are now lifted from whatever they had before. And I know we didn't really get it against Brentford, but look at West Ham. Yes, we didn't play perfectly, but we got the win, and I think it's I think it's dangerous as well for us this weekend that they've got a new man coming in.
Maybe, but I'd say, for example, Man United under Amorim, I know they've just beat Man City, but prior to that, I'm not really sure they did get much of a bounce compared to other teams. But hopefully, I mean, look, I don't know. We'll have to say that
Under Rude, they did though. Under Rude,
that is true. But do you know why though? Because maybe that's because they did at least get a manager that was somewhat relatable, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that I do wonder with this manager in particular, is he's very similar to managers they've had in the past, but maybe not necessarily in a good way. Like, do you know this? Is this just another one of the Mendes army coming over? Is it like, do you remember they had Bruno Lage at one point as well?
Yeah.
Though to be fair, he kept them up as well, didn't he? So I don't know.
I think it will be. I think he'll bring a little bit of stability. And when I say that, I mean he's Portuguese. He's coming in, and they will. The players, some of the players will relate to him. They will. I know it sounds silly, but sometimes like it does play a big part. I've read many articles about football players and stuff and managers, and when you've got a manager who comes in who speaks the same language ultimately as the star players, it makes a difference.
I agree. I think that's why Pearson with Leicester did really well. He got people that were similar to him in character, and that's why he got the most out of them where other managers didn't. And Pearson doesn't get enough respect, in my opinion. He got rid of some of these like waste people like Beckford and Matt Mills and people like this, and got, I think, people that actually wanted to play for the badge. But anyway, let's round this up by looking at what we think our lineup's going to be. I mean, I'm sure you're going to do this in the show tomorrow. But obviously there's a few things up here. So here's what I've gone for. I'm assuming that Mads isn't going to play, which of course makes me sad, but I just feel like there'd be some news on it already. And the last time there were no news, it turned out to be that Abdul Fattah had done his ACL. So I feel with Leicester, you know what's coming. So I've gone bravely for Stolarczyk in goal, just because I refuse to believe that Danny Ward will play. But God help us if he does go in goal, then all of a sudden I'll be a lot more negative. But assuming he's not, who else is going to be in the team? I know you hate him, but I've got a feeling that Wout Fass is going to come back into the team. And the reason I think that is I just think Connor Cody had a horror show against Newcastle. I think Fass has done well under Rude when he's come on. And I always think Okoli didn't have the best performance either, even though I think he's the better player. Like literally, if you saw the analysis yesterday, Okoli came on. The first thing he did was go running up, get beaten behind, and they scored a goal from it. Whereas if he hadn't have rushed so much and kept his position, we probably wouldn't have conceded there. So I think that naivety is maybe not the best. I think, though, if that's bad news, at least some good news is that I'm hopeful at least one of these two will play, and maybe even both. And to be honest with you, even if only one of these two play, and they play next to Skip, even though I don't think Skip is the best, I think Skip alongside the Winks or alongside Samare is still much better than what we played against Newcastle. I also think that the way Wolves play, it shouldn't be such a big issue. Like, of course, I'd hate to see this, but I feel like if we had Hamza and Skip against Wolves, that is nowhere near as bad as having those two against like a team like Newcastle or Liverpool, who are a bit more full throttle, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for. Now, this is an interesting selection. I'm sure, I'll save this for tomorrow because you guys will have a proper debate on it. I've got a feeling Mavadidi will be dropped. Don't think he was too impressive. I think Bonanose will come in, although I don't know. Conspiracy theory is Rude not playing him because we're going to send him back and bring in someone else from Brighton on loan in January. Just saying. And then I think he will go for McAteer again, even though he wasn't particularly great, just for the hard work. And I feel that Bilal's played his way into the first team under Rude. So I think we'll get something like that. But you know what? Rather than discuss this, what I would say is join Locks tomorrow for the Team Builder Live, Friday at 7. What else would you rather be doing? And you'll get to debate this. And this time only, the first player that he starts with every week, which is Mads Hermansen, he literally may not be able to pick him. So I'm going to be tuning into that first 5 minutes alone.
I think it's still as easy. It's Jakob. You know what I mean? It has to be. It has to be Jakob. It has to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you someone who it shouldn't be, and as long as it's not that person, I don't think I'm too annoyed with it. But all right, here's my match prediction. So I think Wolves are in a real mess right now, and the new manager bounce is real. But I said this at the time when I made this, which was a few hours ago. The new man doesn't seem to be in yet, and key players are out. Now he is in. It's Thursday though, so he's going to have Friday and maybe Saturday in terms of training sessions. I don't think you can fix set pieces in that amount of time. I think some of the issues won't be good as well. I think he could try and make them a bit better in terms of being compact and defensive, but I don't think he's going to all of a sudden turn them into an attacking flair unit. But of course, as you say, Locks, the new manager bounce, if they all just put in that 10% more effort, that could be enough. And that's my point here, is that like, even though Wolves have been so bad this season, I think the reality is they still have a better squad than us. I think overall they've still got more internationals, more people that played Premier League games, and they got probably the best player out of both teams is on the Wolves team if he plays. Set pieces are huge for us. We've got a really good set pieces coach. That's the only good thing Cooper did, was bringing Andrew Hughes. So let's get working on some creative things. Newcastle did us in, didn't they, with that really well worked set piece for the first goal. Let's try and come up with something clever, because they're a mess. They don't know if they're coming or going. I think if we can get control of the game and take the game to Wolves, we can pose them many problems. And I do think that the way Ruud sets us up, we should be able to do that. But that's only assuming that either Winks or Samari's in. They're key if they do it. And as I said here, the big worry is if Danny Ward starts. That's all I'm going to say about that much. So with all that in mind, my personal score prediction is I'm going to go the other way from Dave from Talking Wolves. I'm going to still back us for 2-1. But I think it will be a tight game. And I'm just really annoyed. I feel like if Gary O'Neill was still in charge, I'd be feeling pretty confident. As you say, the unknown, we don't know. And look what happened when we played West Ham. I think, on another day, if that was Cooper, they'd have won that game easy. But because we had Ruud, all of a sudden, that little bit of difference and that effort that people put in, and we got it. But it was a game at home, and this is not their first game at home. So maybe that's what will help us there. So before we wrap up, let's take a few questions and comments. Have we got any start? A lot of good comments coming on here.
Absolutely. Stick around, guys. Don't go anywhere just yet. Get any questions in. But yeah, we'll go through some of the ones from earlier. So obviously, what we discussed earlier, Zaid says Cunha apparently is going to play with the new manager. Bounces worrying, and weirdly, we've not heard anything yet. I mean, you even heard Dave there say that they were expecting to hear something today, and yeah, I think we were all expecting something. I still don't get why they would appeal it, other than the fact maybe they want him for the Leicester game. But then again, I think you put it out, Anil, yesterday, that it adds another game onto the ban.
Yeah.
Why I don't know why you do that, but then they also have tough games coming up, right? So they have a tough run as well after Christmas. So it's kind of like, well, maybe they're looking at them as free hits. I don't know. But again, the evidence is clear cut. He's going to get a ban of some kind. It was shocking. So I did see, mate, as well, when you said he should turn up to the hearing with the guy's glasses on, somebody replied and said, yellow tinted glasses. So there we go. Here's a question for you, Anil. Wout Faes needs to start because he is the only one that can win headers in our team. I mean, we always joke about this. Yannick Vestergaard, for someone so tall, he doesn't really win too many headers, mate. But what are your thoughts on Wout Faes and what he will bring to the team with regards to like aerial?
He is. I mean, the weird thing about Wout Faes is he does win the headers, but he's really bad at judging the flight of the ball. So it's a bit of a weird one. But thank you very much, Tap Out Time. But look, I said to you that I expect him to start, but I think he's starting more because other players have done badly. And so I think Ruud did the right choice. He took him out of the team. He was clearly making some stupid errors and getting rattled. But I do think if you're on paper, I still would say I think Wout Faes is the better defender than Connor Cody. Caleb Okoli maybe in time could be better, but I think he needs a leader next to him. So I could see him coming in. I know, I think you do need your better players. It depends if he's up for it, I would say. If you can get a motivated Wout Faes, it could be quite good. Look, I would say, if they are gonna have Cunha, who are we gonna deal with that? I don't know. Do you want Justin and Cody against him or Justin and Faes? I mean, and it's both as bad as each other, isn't it? Really, something to think about. But I think he will come in. Yeah, I think he comes in.
Willie, mate, have you seen the Kusanov? Yes, I have, but we'll talk about this, mate. Trust me, there will be so much content on the channel after Christmas in the new year about transfers, mate. You will not, you will not have to wait long, mate. There will be so much. I can promise you all that. Daily updates, daily videos, daily news, all of that stuff will be coming in the new year on transfers. I also, by the way, just had a text off a friend who isn't in the know, but he has some friends and all that. And he says apparently the rumor going around is that Mads Hermansen isn't going to be out for too long, but he will miss the next three, sorry. So early January, hopefully he'll be back. But that's just a rumor, guys. We'll find out more tomorrow.
I think that sounds about right. That's what it looked like. It didn't seem like it, you'd really know if he was out for a long time. But the problem is that, like, again, I feel like Liverpool, Man City games, even Villa, I mean, we're probably going to lose all three of them. So who really cares? But this game, because how horrible will it feel if like we're winning and we just give away because that's a Ward howler, or they just, they end up getting a jammy win because we had a keeper in it. And I don't know. I mean, we've got that goalkeeping coach, as you say, we're going to learn a lot about him, but I know maybe there's some contractual things, so that's not good. But as I've said there, I don't suspect him. It's funny, Brookline with his conspiracy, he believes a transfer fee has been agreed. Perhaps, but maybe I think would he go in January? That's been rumored a few times. We'll have to see. I don't see that. I think he'll go in the summer though. He's proved. I mean, look, if you're Man City and they dropped Ederson recently, I mean, you should definitely get him in as top keeper. And we don't want Mads to leave, but he's proven he could play for anyone in Europe, in my opinion.
Ryan, I think that's what he will get, but the appeal is if they appeal it. Yeah. It will delay it, right? He'll still be found guilty. It's a no-brainer, but it might delay it just so that he plays against us, basically. Clemo says here, won't be able to fix their set piece issues in 2 days, though, will they? In terms of speaking about Wolves there and their horrific set piece stats. I mean, it's terrible, as you pointed out. Sean says, as long as it's not us in the relegation zone come the end of the season, I don't care who is there. I mean, that's true. I mean, I think we would have all liked Forest maybe to go down, but obviously that's not going to happen if we could really pick. I think the two teams I really dislike probably the most in the world are Forest and Leeds. And Leeds aren't there. So yeah, Forest to go down, but that's not going to happen. So a nil. Chris said, exactly, Vardy is the reason we are even within a chance, and he's 467 years old. Quality is a great investment there. I mean, we talk about this all the time, Anil. Like, all you need to do in football is find one guy that goes on and turns out and has a career like Vardy. I mean, it's very rare. I can't imagine what the odds would be, but a window like that just changes the whole club. Like for the next 10, 15 years, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Well, we know that more than anyone else. I mean, think about it. Like, that's why it was 5,000 to 1. Imagine not making one of those signings, but 3 of them. And you get those signings just at the same time when all the other top teams in the league tend to have an off season. And it happens. So that's the thing. No matter what you say in the history of our club, we got it right at the right time. And look, I think the thing is with transfers as well, though, is that like, even if on paper you do all of your research, it's still a gamble, right? You don't know what if the player has personal issues, what if they don't settle. Like, and you know what? There are a few things I've got to say. Like, a lot of people have mentioned Samara. Like, Brookline was asking if Samara's got his own chant yet. If not, we need to get the "We Love Boobs" chant going the next time we're up at the King Power. But Samara looked awful for a long time, and now finally this season he actually looks like he's a good player. Right. And what I think I'm saying is that he clearly always was a good player, but something else was holding him back. Right. Like, maybe he didn't have the best English. Maybe it was a bit of a culture shock. He didn't have his kebab and chips. He wasn't sure what that was all about compared to his, food that he was having. Now, finally, he's got that. Even Victor Christensen, I think, is another one as well. I think he's got flaws as well, but he's clearly showing this season that there is something there. So it just shows you how difficult the transfer market is. And equally, we've made some signings. Like, I've said this to you a few times, Knox, but to this day, I don't understand how Adrian Silva was such a washout. Because I remember seeing Sporting play Real Madrid in the Champions League, and he was like bossing a Modric and Kroos midfield at the Bernabeu. And I was thinking, oh my God, are we really going to get this player? And then he came here and he just, the breeze would blow him over. It's crazy.
It was probably what happened, mate. Because he was in limbo. He was at the club training, or what I mean, for what 6 months, or less than that, probably 4 or 5 months. Not being able to play a single minute. So I think he might have even been playing in the under-21s, I think, or something like that. So, but yeah, Puel effect. Let's not stick Puel too much with the players.
I think he's right though there, because he didn't like he restrained his game. It did look like he didn't know if he was supposed to be like a 6 or an 8. I think with an Enzo style manager, he'd be pretty good, because his range of passing and his ability to play out of pressure is really good. That's why I'm saying I'm not really sure why it went so badly for him. But as you say, surely that conditioning got to him. But yeah, I mean, he's not the only one that we've had.
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say about the players that Puel brought in, but I suppose it was Rodgers who actually got the best out of them players, right? Madison, Ricardo, it was Rodgers, not Puel, that got the best out of them. So yeah, you are right. Question here for you. Well, not really a question, but more of a statement. Ryan says, I find it extremely sad every day knowing there's no more Fatawu this season. I agree, although I've seen little rumblings that the severity of the ACL and things like that, and because of his age as well, there's a small chance that he could feature towards the end of the season. But then you're thinking
he won't be peak though, will he?
Exactly, and you may as well save him then and give him a full pre-season. So, yeah.
Although to be fair,
if we need him at the end,
I could see him coming on with like 2 games left to go and like 10 minutes to go, and he bangs one in to keep us up. I could see that, but yeah, he's not going to come in and be a starter, that's for sure. And as you say, I don't think we should, even us, we shouldn't risk it on a player like that. I think that's happened so many times to players. Like, look what happened to Wayne Rooney, because he played from such a young age. That's why he fell apart so quickly. I think you need to protect the young players a bit.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Tap Out Time said, well done, lads. Quality content. Locks, if you play LFTV at football, will you 2-foot Jamie? No. I'll leave the 2-foot of Jamie to someone else. I'm going straight for Phil, mate. I'm going straight for Phil, trust me. Although he'd probably be on the touchline, not being a very good manager. Anyway, so Zaid says, hopefully they don't rush. Yeah, exactly. Dallas Fox says, a week before I make a trip over, Mads gets hurt. Please tell me I am not a new Leicester injury curse. Hopefully not. Let us know though, Craig, if you're about, mate. I'll link up with you. We'll go for a beer or whatever. I don't know how long you're here for, mate, but let me know. And finally, this is a comment and a sentence that I never thought I'd see. I'm rooting for Leicester as a Forest fan. You are my second team. Disappointed you want us relegated. Steve, it's more the fans. That some of your fans are just unbearable. That's probably what it is, mate. It's same with Leeds. I haven't really got anything against Leeds as a football club, but the fans are unbearable. So that's why I don't want them to do very well. But yeah, Anil, mate, I'll hand back to you, mate.
No, that's it. Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for the team builder with Locks. And of course, tune in on Sunday where we'll have match day live and instant match reaction. Should be an interesting one. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Blue Tinted Glasses. Bye-bye.